viewers, I'm the Extraordinary Tourist, and in this lesson I'm going to teach you how to lip sync hands in Cartoon Animator 4. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about or what it means to lip sync hands, well, it's generally, if you see when people talk, you'll often see how they reinforce what they're saying by making hand gestures. If they're not sort of conscious about what their hands are doing, or they're not sort of sitting with their hands crossed in their lap or behind their back, consciously making an effort not to move their hands, they'll often sort of reinforce what they're saying with various hand movements. And like if they're angry, they might point and that kind of thing, or if they're excited, they might wave their hands around. And in character animation, you can really make your characters seem a lot more alive by animating their hands and arms to sort of synchronize with what they're saying. So I'm using a technique that I'm calling bracketing, which is a combination of I use pre-animated motions that you get in Cartoon Animator's library, and then I modify those motions using this bracketing technique, and I'll go into that in more detail as we get into the lesson. So let's just get on with it. So to get started, I have this scene set up that I've created from various packs that I've purchased, and if you're interested in actually acquiring any of these, the character in the middle here is actually from the new Campus Hero pack that was recently released by Real Illusion. The background that you can see there is a very old Real Illusion pack, but it's still available. It's called this one, Medieval Citizens. And the final part of my animation, which you haven't heard yet, is the voice. I'm using Princess Voice Pack from Volume 1 by Kelsey Little, which you can get from Gary Pye's Creations store. Anyway, this is the animation, and I'll just run through it so you can see what it is.
Sometimes I think, maybe I should get an education, better myself. But then I remember I'm a freaking princess.
And that's it. And just to quickly break this down, you can see there that her hands are already and arms are already quite animated. That entire animation is completely done with existing motions. So if we look at the timeline, so I've got an introduce motion which pretty much lifts one arm up, brings the other arm up and down again. There's a short start motion here, so it's talk start in between this bit. And that's right up against my introduce motion. You see she's raising her arms again. Then here we've got a talk loop. Then we've got a talk to loop up here. And that's the one that I've looped twice. You see she's moving her arms around. And then we've got a talk end, just to sort of reset her back down. So there's that end talking and she puts her arms down and he's reset. And I haven't done any keyframing. All of these things, keyframes you see here, is just what's automatically being placed there, because I did actually just pick these up and start dragging them around just to get them roughly aligned with what she was saying. And obviously the lip syncing is completely auto. I haven't done any work on her facial expressions or her eye blinks or anything like that. But as you can see, if we played that,
Sometimes I think, maybe I should get an education, better myself. But then I remember I'm a freaking princess.
and we could actually probably get away with that. It's not too bad. There's a lot of sort of gestures there and they kind of match up with what she's saying. But there's a lot we could do to really make this better and just add smaller touches. And the point of using the pre-existing animations is so that you get most of the general big movements animated automatically, and all that's left for you to do is a bit of fine tuning to save you time instead of trying to keyframe every single movement. So we'll go back to the start and bring up the timeline. Now unfortunately I'm going to have to leave the sound on because it really helps if you can hear where the sound is happening when you're doing this kind of work. So hopefully that won't be too annoying. I'm going to open up the face track because I need to see the audio waveform as well. So a voice clip here. So what I'm going to do is at the start this first hand movement that she makes here, it kind of matches, but I think we could do a little bit more. So what she's saying is sometimes I think, and like she might, instead of going sometimes I think, where she's putting her hand out, you can sort of see me doing that, she might go sometimes I think. She might make a fist, or she might do some sort of pointing like this, you know, sometimes I think I should get an education. So we put this little sort of maybe fist-like sort of movement in there that sort of is maybe adding a bit of, I don't know, determination, or it's implying that she's doing something. So making a fist is doing something. Sometimes I think, and then as she's opening her hand, it's sort of expressing that thought and pushing it out there. So that's what we're going to try and do. Now to do this, when you're modifying movements, it's very important to do this technique that I call bracketing. And what that is setting down the start and end points of where this movement's going to occur so that you don't get weird results happening. So I'll demonstrate that by bringing up the 2D motion key editor, and you'll see here we've got, in this editor we've got set key options, and you've got full body or selected part. Now when I'm doing this, I usually keep this on full body because that guarantees that I know everything is keyframed on the character. If you do selected body part, you may still get unusual results, but sometimes that may be appropriate. You may want to just keyframe the body part. It's something you'll have to experiment with, but for this particular motion we're going to have that set to full body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out where I want the start of this movement to begin happening. As you can see, she's already bringing up her arms, so I don't need to do anything before that. So she's bringing her arm up here, still bringing her arm up, and then she sort of stops there. But her hand's still going up. It's about there. And then she starts to move the hand back again. So what we want to do is get it to just before her hand starts moving down. It's about there. So at that point there, make sure we're on the motion clip there, we want to set a keyframe there. So we go set keyframe, and you'll see that just put keyframes in here. So that's our first bracket, and then now we want to do our second bracket, which is where our motion is going to end. So we want, as I was sort of showing, we want her to do this fist motion and then sort of gradually get back to that open hand that she's already got. So that's where she's saying think about there. So that's where the actual fist is going to happen. But we want to get her back to the open hand on the end of where she's saying think. So sometimes I think, that's what we're going for. So that's about where she finishes saying think. So we want to do our end bracket of keyframes there. You'll see we've had 2 more keyframes added into the timeline there. So this bracket, what this does is ensures that anything that we do in between here, in between these 2 points, will not affect anything beyond those points. So if I didn't have this bracket here and I started moving her hand in here or her arm here, her arm would sort of begin moving from this key point because that's the first keyframe, and the movement would start from there, and that's not what we want. We want all of this movement to stay intact, and we want our new movement to start from this bracket. So that's what we're going to do. Now we're going to actually put in the modified movement of this sort of fist thing that we're going to make her do. So we go sometimes. So she's starting to say think about there. So that's where the keyframe's going to be. So I just need to select her hand here and move it more over here. She's going to make a fist and kind of point to her head here. So now if I move the timeline, you'll see that gets us back there. You'll see. So you can see think, and then her hands drifting back down, and she's got both her arms out, going into that next line of sometimes I think I should get an education, or whatever it is she's saying. So now that we've got that movement, the next thing to do is to work on the sprites in her hand. So at this point she's going to maybe not make a complete fist, depends what sprites she has available. So we'll go into the sprite editor and select that hand, and we'll see what we've got. So she could make that movement, could get her into a complete fist there. There's a bit of a fist there. Sometimes I think that would possibly work. I don't know if a fist is quite what I wanted to do though. It seems a bit too extreme. Could do sometimes I think kick. I don't think these hands are any good. Well, that one might be. Sometimes I think do that. She might sometimes I think I might just go with her sort of going into that motion. And you can see, like, we could just go straight to that, but we could, since she's going to be moving her fingers, we could add in another pose in there. Maybe that just splits her fingers up a little bit at that point. See what else we got. Maybe that. So that's not too bad. So she's there. And she's done her like sort of closed hand type movement, and now her hand's got to open back up again. So maybe about there she starts opening her hand again. Not that one. What's that one look? And then by the time she gets to here, we just want her to have her hand back in the position she was in, so we can just do reset. And now her hand's back there. You can see we've added all these keyframes. And you can see that's just added a lot more extra movement to that expression. So just play that through. We'll get rid of the timeline and just sort of play that little bit.
Sometimes I think maybe I should get an education. Sometimes I think maybe I should get an...
I think that may have gone through a bit too quick. So maybe we can play around with some of the movements here. So we could go if we wanted to, we could get her to hold that pose a bit longer. Maybe copy that. Paste it there. It's probably holding it for a bit too long, so we'll just give it an extra frame or two. So let's see what that looks like.
Sometimes I think maybe I should get an education. Better? Sometimes I think maybe I should get an...
There we go. Didn't need that extra keyframe of sort of holding her hand in place, so have a look at that now.
Sometimes I think maybe I should get an education.
So there you go, like that's my process of how I adjust predefined motions using this bracketing technique. You see everything that I did there, I was messing around inside my two keyframes at either end that act as my brackets, so that none of this animation up here is any different to what it was before I started messing around. I'm not getting any unusual results up here, and I'm not messing up what I've animated beforehand. It's all being done in between my two brackets. You can actually do the same with your facial expressions.
maybe I should get an education.
Perhaps where she says maybe I should get an education, we'll work on her face animation. So let's close the motion up and just go with a facial clip. Again on this, we want to be on the face track, I think. The expressions. And I'm going to give her an expression where she sort of squints her eyes. Maybe I should get an education. So what we're going to do is put a keyframe here. Maybe she does a thinking sort of pose. So for facial animation, we're going to face key editor, and we're just going to use these templates to do this. If we go on the face track here, we can add a keyframe here. So we've got a frame there, so that shouldn't mess up anything that we do before. And then we'll do where our facial animation is going to finish. So this will be my other bracket at where it's ending. So I'll put another keyframe there. In theory, anything we do inside between here is only going to be affecting our animation in between these two key points. We won't mess up anything here, and we won't mess up anything over there. So on maybe, what could she do? Maybe she's thinking on that point. Maybe about there we want something that's sort of going to make her look like she's thinking. I'll try this. Hesitate. No, not really. It makes her blink. Hesitate 2 makes her blink her other eye. What could we do? Do it like that. And if we do feel 1, we have a look at the detail settings. Expression, how much of that expression do we want? Can tone it down just a little bit. The expression bar here at the bottom, that just you'll see if you look at her face there, might be a bit hard to see that. That returns it back to normal. That's full expression, so tone it down. Just want like a questioning, like sort of expression there. And you'll see if we go move the thing, none of that expression before has changed, but maybe when she gets the eye, she's sort of lifting her eyebrows a bit, so there we go. So we could bring that expression back a bit. Get rid of that.
Maybe I should get education.
Maybe at this point. We start lowering our brows a bit there.
Get an education.
So you see there, look between those two brackets that I set up. We've just animated her face a little bit.
Better myself.
And it hasn't affected anything past where my last bracket is, and it hasn't affected anything beforehand.
Maybe I should get an education.
Could even put in an eye blink towards the end there, so eyes. Make a blink at that point. So there we go. Just play that back, see how that looks.
Sometimes I think maybe I should get an education, better myself. But then I remember I'm a freaking princess.
So there you go, that's my bracketing technique. I'm going to go through and finish off this animation, and I'll probably play this at the end of the video so that you can see the whole thing complete and just see how different and how much better in theory it should look from the original version that was just done with predefined motions and no keyframing or any extra effort on my behalf.
Sometimes I think maybe I should get an education, better myself. But then I remember I'm a freaking princess. Sometimes I think maybe I should get an education, better myself. But then I remember I'm a freaking princess.
I hope you found this tutorial useful and that you'll find using this bracketing technique an easy way to get your character animation looking just that little bit better, so that you don't have to rely entirely on predefined motions, and will hopefully give you a bit of confidence to actually modify those motions and get the results that you actually want in terms of getting your characters to express themselves and just generally be more lifelike and realistic in the way that they talk to each other, and how you lip sync their hands basically. So if you like this video, make sure to give it a like. If you know someone who you think might find it useful, share it with them, and if you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and it's always a good idea to hit the bell button as well, because I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be with videos, so you may like to be notified whenever I do put a video out. Until next time, bye for now.